Imagine standing face to face with a human who isn't quite like you, yet isn't fully alien either. Their eyes meet yours, deep set beneath a heavy brow ridge that casts a shadow even in daylight. The skull is thicker, the jaw stronger, the nose broad and high. You can sense the strength in the way they move, a compact body of dense muscle and bone built to endure a world far colder and harsher than ours. This is a Neanderthal, a cousin on the human family tree, forged by the Ice Age into something both familiar and extraordinary. They were not the slow-witted cavemen of outdated textbooks. Neanderthals were survival specialists, honed over hundreds of thousands of years in landscapes that would break most modern humans in days. Picture Ice Age Europe, endless plains dusted with snow, winds that cut like knives, and skies heavy with the threat of more storms. Herds of mammoths trudge through the frost, wolves prowl the tree line, and somewhere between the dark forest and the open tundra, a group of stocky hunters kneels around a fire, their breath rising in white clouds. To understand them, we have to strip away the myths. They weren't just us in fur coats. Their bodies told a story written in adaptation. Short limbs reduced heat loss. Broad chests and heavy rib cages protected powerful lungs. Bones were so thick they rivaled those of today's strongest athletes, shaped by a lifetime of close-range hunting and relentless physical strain. And then there was the face, jutting mid-face, massive nasal cavities that warmed each breath of freezing air before it reached their lungs. Every detail was the work of nature's cold chisel, making them efficient machines for surviving deep winter. The first clues to their existence surfaced in 1856, when quarry workers in Germany's Neander Valley stumbled on strange ancient bones. They handed them to Johann Karl Fuhlrott, a schoolteacher with a keen eye for the unusual. What he saw defied the science of his day: a skull with a low, long brain case, prominent brow ridges, and thick limb bones. This wasn't a diseased human or a criminal's remains, as skeptics claimed. Fuhlrott believed it was an entirely different type of human. Few believed him at first, but as similar skeletons emerged from caves across Europe, the truth became harder to ignore. Humanity had once shared the continent with another kind of human, one every bit as real and complex as ourselves. When you study their remains, you begin to see the extremes of their lives. Many skeletons show signs of healed fractures, broken arms, cracked ribs, even skull injuries that would kill most people today. Yet these Neanderthals lived on, evidence that they were cared for by their groups. This care wasn't rare kindness, it was a necessity for survival. In a world where a single hunting injury could mean death, community was the only insurance. They were hunters of enormous skill and courage. Modern humans favored projectiles that kept them at a safe distance, but Neanderthals often struck at close range. Imagine the chaos of it. A group driving a massive bison into a narrow ravine, the animal thrashing and bellowing as spears thrust from all sides. The risk was immense, but so was the reward. A single kill could feed the group for days. They worked in tight coordination, reading the movements of their prey and each other with unspoken understanding. This wasn't mindless brute force. It was precision teamwork under deadly pressure. And then there was their command of fire. They didn't just use it, they managed it. Hearths found at their sites tell us they knew how to maintain embers, to keep heat alive through freezing nights. They used wood, bone, and sometimes strange black minerals like manganese dioxide, which may have helped fires ignite more easily. Fire was warmth, light, and a means to cook meat, making it easier to chew and digest. It was also protection from predators whose eyes gleamed in the darkness just beyond the fire's reach. But perhaps what surprises most is that their lives weren't just about surviving the next hunt. They left behind signs of thought, of meaning. Some sites reveal burials, bodies carefully placed in pits, sometimes with tools or animal bones beside them. In the caves of Spain, red pigments mark the walls, their age stretching back over 64,000 years, long before modern humans entered the region. Whether these marks were symbolic, spiritual, or something else entirely, they tell us Neanderthals had an inner world we still don't fully grasp. In these cold lands, where each day could be a test of endurance, they were more than just strong. They were observant. They noticed how certain plants could ease pain or soothe illness, traces of yarrow and poplar found in their ancient teeth. They shaped wood into weapons, flaked stone with precision, and adapted to landscapes that shifted with the rhythms of ice and thaw. Their intelligence wasn't the same as ours. It was shaped by different challenges, tuned to an environment where awareness and memory could mean the difference between life and death. And yet, there's a tension in their story. For all their resilience, they lived in small, scattered groups. Populations could be isolated for long stretches, vulnerable to disease, to food scarcity, to changes in climate. The very landscapes that made them strong also made survival a constant gamble. Still, for nearly 300,000 years, they endured. The ice came and went, predators rose and fell, but the Neanderthals remained, their fires flickering in caves across Europe and Western Asia. Even now, their bones speak. You can trace the pull of muscle in the shape of their limbs, the grind of daily labor in the wear of their teeth, the stories of injury and recovery in the knitting of bone. They tell us of lives lived close to the earth, under skies heavy with snow, among herds of animals that no longer walk the world. And as we uncover more of their story, the image of the hunched, dim-witted caveman fades further into fiction. What stands in its place is something richer, stranger, and far more human. Part 2 will bring us closer to the edge of their disappearance, where ice, changing climates, and our own species all play their part. But before we step into that final chapter, I want to hear from you. Which part of the Neanderthals' life strikes you most? Their physical power, their care for one another, or the possibility that they made art long before us? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals for more journeys into the hidden chapters of our past. As the centuries rolled on, the landscape itself began to reshape the destiny of the people. Rivers shifted courses, carving new valleys and flooding old settlements. Some tribes learned to harness these waters, building primitive levees and irrigation ditches that allowed them to farm more consistently, even in years when the rains were late. This subtle mastery over nature's cycles gave them a stability their nomadic neighbors could not match, and over time, it attracted wandering groups who saw opportunity in joining rather than raiding. In this way, villages grew not through conquest, but through a steady pull of survival and prosperity. Yet with growth came complexity. Leaders emerged, some chosen for their wisdom, others for their strength, and disputes over land, harvest shares, and alliances became more common. Early councils formed, often held in open clearings where elders and warriors debated under the watchful gaze of ancestors whose names were etched into carved wooden totems. These gatherings were not just about politics. They were where laws were spoken aloud, myths were retold to bind the community, and decisions were sealed with symbolic feasts. Through these rituals, a shared identity deepened, turning loose clusters of families into something closer to a nation in spirit. But the outside world was never far away. Traders from distant coasts began to appear, their language strange, their goods unfamiliar, shells from tropical seas, obsidian blades sharper than anything local stone could produce. Beads dyed in colors the villagers had never imagined. Such encounters sparked both wonder and caution. For with trade came the risk of dependency and the threat of diseases the people had no resistance against. The elders warned of losing the old ways, yet younger generations, curious and ambitious, saw in these new arrivals a chance to rise above the limits of their ancestors. Seasons passed, and the balance between tradition and change became the defining challenge of their age. Some communities embraced innovation, adopting foreign tools and techniques with remarkable speed. Others retreated inward, doubling down on isolation, convinced that every outside influence chipped away at the essence of who they were. This divide would shape alliances and rivalries for decades to come, influencing which groups would thrive and which would vanish into the mists of history. In the heart of this evolving world, one particular settlement began to stand out. Its location was strategic. Nestled between a fertile plain and a narrow pass through the mountains, it controlled the flow of goods and travelers moving between regions. Over time, it transformed into a hub of commerce and culture, where local artisans adapted foreign designs into works uniquely their own, and storytellers wove tales that blended ancient legends with new experiences from the wider world. This cultural fusion became its strength, attracting talent and knowledge from far beyond its borders. But such prominence was never without peril. Rumors began to spread of a powerful force gathering in the east, warriors clad in armor, carrying weapons that gleamed in the sun like fire itself. Merchants spoke of entire villages being brought under their rule, of leaders forced to pledge loyalty or face destruction. For the Mountain Pass settlement, the question was no longer whether change was coming, but whether they would shape it or be swept away by it. One winter, scouts reported smoke rising from a valley only 2 days' journey away. The council met in secret, debating whether to send envoys, fortify their defenses, or abandon the settlement altogether. Every choice carried risk, and no one could be certain of the enemy's true strength. Yet in that moment, as snow fell silently over the thatched roofs, the people understood that their story was about to enter a new chapter, one that would test not only their survival, but the very identity they had spent generations building. What happened next would determine whether they became a beacon of resilience or just another forgotten name in the fading memory of the earth. Share your thoughts. Would you have chosen diplomacy, defense, or flight? And if you want to keep exploring the lost worlds of our past, make sure to subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals so you never miss the stories that shaped humanity's earliest chapters.